Good evening.
Hey.
Thank you for coming out. It's a little bit different to when I socialise in Hayward Heath.
It's a horrible place.
Yeah, it is well, you know, horrible's a relative term. David.
Hello everybody, my name is David Shepherd and I'm here to assist Jerry. I'm going to ask him a few questions basically, but first of all I think you're going to read a little bit.
Oh yeah, okay. So I've got two books to read from here, one of which you can buy, the other which you can't. I've got to tell you now, the book that you can't buy is the better book. I am open to bids. 5p. The idea behind this book, The Electrical Storm, was, you know, when people go down a pub and they tell their anecdotes and they kind of, you know, everybody laughs and you have a good time and you go home feeling satisfied. I used to do that, and I used to be a really terrible name dropper, or a good name dropper depending on your perspective. And so I thought it'd be interesting to put a book together with all those stories in, featuring all those famous names that I used to name drop almost religiously every single week. But take all the names out and see whether the stories stood up or not. So that's what this book does, and oddly enough, hasn't sold a copy. This first story is called Chelmsford, Essex, 1977. I don't know what she looks like. This is crucial for what is to follow. I don't know what she looks like. For months, I've been struggling to understand the attraction of pop music. I have a Beatles songbook that I like to thump out chords from on my parents' piano, hour after hour after hour. Repetition in the music and there ain't no way I'll lose it. I haven't heard most of the original versions. The Beatles are frowned upon in my good Christian High Church of England household. Not wrong precisely, just not any good. I like the melodies, they appeal to me the way melodies always do. The lyrics, well, the lyrics sometimes border on the misogynistic, or at the very least not understanding of women, and that appeals to my fucked up, uncomprehending teenage self. But I don't understand the appeal of pop music, while the cooler kids are knuckling down on a Thursday evening and a Saturday morning, watching the charts. I'm out helping with cubs, not particularly aware that such things as charts exist. I look at pictures of punks in the Observer Sunday supplement, Susie Sue and her mates in their suspender belts and scrawled on Nazi symbols. This is another world. It has no relevance. And then I hear this 2-minute blast of pop sweetness blaring out my parents' tinny transistor radio in the dining room. It's kept there on the mantelpiece so we can listen to Thought for the Day in the morning and the cricket in summer, Douglas Adams plays and classical music. And I don't know how to react. Bluntly, it is sex. It awakens a deep-rooted desire inside me that I didn't even know existed. The song is fantastic. All ooby-doos and bad French and laconic New York female insinuation, the drums, a thunder of celebration and incoming deviance. It is sex, desire, longing, desire. I want to hear it again and again. Never stop listening. I want to own it. I want to possess it. I never, never want to let the ringing in my ears stop. I can't hear a bass line. I can't hear guitars or whatever they are. All I can hear is the wanton promise in the voice and the pounding, thundering drums. And I feel a thrill of excitement that starts way down in my chest and spreads and spreads and spreads. To say I've never experienced anything like this before is an understatement. It blows my world open. So that's the first one. The second one is called The Venue, Victoria, 1982. From the first note we knew. Immediately our legs are a blur of failed kicks and truncated leaps. Immediately our heads are bobbing and weaving about. 30 seconds in, a feeling of sheer disbelief overwhelms me, and Jeff too. I can't believe the rest of the world is moving so slow, so static. Why are these people gaping at us? Why the invisible barrier between our sweet dancing feet and the rest of the venue? Can't they hear those righteous blasts of brass coming from the stage, that build-up and welter of emotion, the inclement guitar, the straining plaintive voice? Aren't they witness to the same frantic, busy but not wasteful drumming, that stand-up bass being slapped because, damn, that stand-up bass has clearly been very naughty sometime in its life? Can't they feel a beat from the first note we know? The fact the song speeds up randomly towards 30 seconds of beyond endurance dancing only spurs us further. We're dancing too hard to care. From the first note, the first beat, we can't stop ourselves, we can't help ourselves. This, a whirling dervish of a dance through the firmament of rock. This, a two-heady world with its full-on post-punk turbulence and brutal jazz rhythm. This, an electric charge, this electrical storm, through mood swing after mood swing after mood swing. We're not even here to see this fucking band. We have no idea who they are. We're here to see our favourite band, the headliners, with their manic eruptions of noise and brutality, shows always on the verge of falling apart. You never know what's going to happen next, but you know you've got to keep moving. And we can't stay, there's no point, there's no following that, no one can, not even the best fucking band in the world. So we walk straight out the moment they finish, the brass and jazz rhythms dancing around inside our heads in multicoloured explosions, arms and legs flailing uncontrollably, punching our way through the crowd. We don't look back. And this third piece is called Seattle 1994. I'm walking through an airport, a bag of records under my arm. I'm watching the lights sparkle and twinkle above the city of Seattle, my favourite sight in the world, as tears crease down my face, and I'm wishing I was anywhere but here. I'm in a hotel room, incoherent rage coursing through me and just as rapidly dying away again. I make a great show of pouring the remains of my whiskey bottle down a sink, but it's meaningless. Have you heard the news? Cipher after cipher asks me on the phone. Have you heard the news? Oh, is the news important then, all of a sudden? I'm dully asking the check-in desk whether they have any cheaper flight tickets because I have to get someplace and I have to get there now. They find me cheaper flight tickets, half-price death special. I'm talking to my friend Eric on the telephone. He's in LA and I'm in Ohio, and he's telling me that he and his party want to meet me at the residence. Need to meet me at the residence. I want to know what to do, and he's telling me that I should go there. Now. I want to know what to do, and in the background behind his airport payphone I can hear a babble of voices, many raised. He says he'll send a limousine for me. He says that's what will happen. I want to know what will happen. He says he'll send a car for me. He's in LA and I'm in Cincinnati. We don't talk about it. I'm walking through the airport to the departure lounge, and Steve's taken my records from me, and I have nothing with me, no hand baggage, just a passport and an old pair of jeans. I'm in Mark's apartment, and I'm looking at my jeans and saying something about how maybe neither of us care, and he certainly wouldn't have given a damn, but it feels disrespectful somehow. It's not raining outside. It's fucking beautiful, and Mark says something about how weather changes moods. I cut my toenail badly, clipping it with an unfamiliar tool. It starts to bleed. The TV is on momentarily. Lots of sheep in a field. We switch it off. I'm on the plane and Seattle is twinkling, and I want to stay circling the city forever. I think of all the people who've met me in arrivals over the years. No friends are meeting me today, just a chauffeur who refrains from talking. The first time I landed in SeaTac, it was snowing so thickly we couldn't see the ground until the wheels hit the tarmac, and even then we couldn't see the ground. The tears spiral around my face, dried on there by the years. I'm on an airplane going nowhere. I have nothing to listen to. I'm in a limousine and there seems to be some kind of roadblock up ahead, a scrimmage of reporters and police officers. We'll never get through that. We'll have to go around, won't we? The driver turns around and looks at me almost for the first time. That's our destination, buddy. I'm up in the bedroom and people are crying. I'm standing by a winding staircase and people are crying and shouting. I'm hugging myself. I'm talking on the phone to my mother, wondering how she's managed to track me down to a telephone booth in an American airport. I'm missing my lost friends, badly. I'm in a corner, and the opposing factions try and talk to me. I have nothing to say, no bag of records to show everyone or enthuse them with, to make them laugh or something. I have no stories or funny vomiting acts. Mark comes over and says, nothing. I'm in a hotel bathroom watching the remains of the bottle disappear down the sink. I'm outside, standing outside a fast food joint, looking at the sun. I'm wondering if anyone's ever going to want to listen to my stories again.
Thanks, Jerry.
That's all right, nice and cheery.
Yeah, thanks for starting us out on a happy note. First of all, who was the band at the venue?
Australian post-punk band called the Laughing Clowns. But I think you figured that already. They came out of an amazing Australian punk band called the Saints, whose 3 albums are pretty much some of the best punk music ever made, and then the Laughing Clowns were actually better.
There's a bit of a theme here because the book you're reading from is called Electrical Storm, and that's the same name as a record by one of the Laughing Clowns.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a U2 song, at least it is a U2 song, but I wasn't aware of that. It's the Electrical Storm, and it was partly inspired by the fact I lived in Brisbane for 7 years until a couple of years ago. And the Brisbane national state pastime is to sit out on your deck at about 6 or 7 in the evening during the summer season and watch the electrical storms light up the sky for hours on end.
So let's just talk a little bit, if you will, about the final piece you read, which is very, very poignant because by not naming any names, I think it kind of adds a level of let's say, of poignancy. But I want you to talk a little bit about grunge, because is it for you? I wonder, first of all, is it an albatross for you? So when I say that, does your heart sink?
Grunge. Well, for a couple of years, people wanted to know me. And that was nice. You know, it's nice people wanting to know you. And then for a lot longer time, people didn't want to know me, which isn't so nice. So I guess I should be grateful to grunge for that. In terms of the musical style, what people know of as grunge pretty much sums up everything I detest about modern music. I like what I thought of as grunge and termed grunge. I got credited with inventing the genre grunge, which is absurd because, you know, journalists don't invent genres. If anything, they might name them, but that's about it. You know, it's the musicians, it's the promoters, it's the producers, it's the photographers, it's the, you know, everybody else who does the inventing. It was a good time. I mean, what was interesting about grunge from my perspective is that somebody once remarked that Sub Pop Records' genius was in selling the big dumb rock back to the kind of cool kids. They wouldn't have been able to do that without someone like me in tandem, because I was not aware of the big dumb rock until I encountered Sub Pop. I grew up kind of after punk, believing that everything from the 70s was absolute, you know, you shouldn't ever go anywhere near it. Certainly anything metal or rock or and everything that came out in the 80s with a guitar attached was kind of, you know, you had to be very wary of that. So when I actually encountered Sub Pop and I was like, oh, actually, you know what, this music's quite fun after all, I came to it with a certain naivety that couldn't have been faked, and that naivety kind of put across an enthusiasm for the music that other people could latch onto. I seem to have done a lot too much thinking about this.
Can we just now move on slightly to talk about the other book, which you're going to read from shortly, the Ed Sheeran book, let's call it that. There it is. I was reading it this afternoon, and like a lot of your writing, it's funny, it's scabrous, it's provocative, it's personal, it's also universal in some ways, and it's observations of music. But it seemed to me there's a theme, and a theme also is in the other book, which you've already read from, which is that your writing seems to be seeking a kind of authenticity, always. That seems to be the sort of overriding goal of what you're seeking to find through your writing. Is that something you recognise?
All right. The reason I started writing about music is because I used to dance down the front of shows, which is why I read that Laughing Clowns piece out partly. I used to dance down the front of shows. If I liked a band, I'd dance. If I didn't, I wouldn't dance. Other people didn't dance. I wanted more people to dance, so I started writing about it in an attempt to make them dance.
Isn't that how Alan McGee found you? Because you were dancing.
Yes, dancing down the front of one of his band's shows. And then I quickly realised I grew up like everybody kind of who grew up through fanzines, hating the music press, hating the music journalists, but buying it religiously anyway. And obviously a lot of hatred came from jealousy, because these guys were getting to do really cool shit and hang out with cool people all the time. I was like, wow, okay, I could do that. So then I realised that my mission was just to make everybody jealous of me. So that's all I ever attempted in my writing for several years. And you know what, if that's what you're attempting to do, it's actually quite easy to do. You just lie. You know, you don't put in all the boring bits, you just lie. You just exaggerate the bits which are...
Well, we were talking yesterday about transcribing interviews. And we both agreed that the best ones are when the tape recorder doesn't work and you have to make it up.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, sorry, what was the question again, David?
Authenticity.
Oh yeah, so all I've ever attempted to do with my own writing is to make sense of my own life. The day I do that is the day I will stop writing. I suspect it will never happen. But that's all I've ever attempted to do. And it just so happens that music's always been the one constant, the one most important thing in my life, up to the point I became a father, actually. And so that's how I interpret. It's just I don't make any secret of it these days. It's not like I try to write for the mainstream or anything. I write for myself, my blog, and my dwindling band of readers. And I am still trying to make sense of my own life. Now, in terms of trying to make people jealous, I've kind of come through the other side on that. I'm just like trying to make people feel better about themselves now, which isn't too difficult, because all you have to do is compare yourself to me and you're like, oh, I feel good.
Let's talk about Ed Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran, I bet he feels good.
Well, he's on the cover of your book.
Yes, now Ed Sheeran, now this book was actually going to be called Dave Grohl is Shit, because I thought that was more my demographic. But then I thought, well, you know what, I've met Dave Grohl and I haven't met Ed Sheeran, and he's kind of an okay bloke, you know, I don't know if he still is, but he certainly used to be an okay bloke. And it seems a bit gratuitous, especially as the entire series was inspired by a lecture I gave at Southampton Solent University with my friend Professor Martin James gave the lecture, and he spent most of the lecture talking about how great Ed Sheeran was because his daughter liked him. And I was watching him and I was thinking, well, that's all very well, but I don't really believe for 1 second that you think Ed Sheeran's great. And I was thinking, well, why are people apologising for him? Why can't we just say that we don't like him? What's wrong with that? I don't have anything against Ed Sheeran per se. He actually makes my kids very happy, and for that I thank him. What what inspired this title, Ed Sheeran is shit, is more the fact that we're not allowed to say. It feels like you're not allowed to say stuff like that because that's trolling or clickbait or something in this internet age, and you're not meant to do that. And I think that's a shame because that takes away a lot of the fun of music criticism. And on top of that, from what I always understood, I had a formative experience really early on when I started writing about music. The first fanzine that Alan McGee ever put out, he went on to do Creation Records and put out loads of shit records and a couple of good ones. He asked me to do a column for his fanzine, and I was like, well, I can't write. He's like, well, it doesn't matter, just write about everything you hate, because he said hate, because you're the most passionate person about music I know. So I did. And after it came out, we only printed up a few hundred copies. I was working as a screen printer in Soho at the time, and I got a phone call from the A&R guy at one of the two biggest independent labels in the country at the time, and he absolutely went ballistic at me. He just swore at me down the phone for 45 minutes or so. Me, this little punk kid who couldn't even speak to people at the time, kind of working as a screen printer, and all because in this column I just referred to his label as a bunch of hippies. Back then it was an insult, so I don't know if it is these days. But back then it was an insult, and I was kind of in shock for quite a while after that. But afterwards I was thinking, you know what? That's actually the reaction I wanted, because he really kind of deliberately upset me by putting out all this shit music, and I deliberately upset him by writing a review of all this really shit music. And so this is sort of a continuation of that, in as much as I believe that if you're a fan of music, that goes both ways. You love music and you really hate music. And I don't think it's right that you should hide that. And fuck kind of whether somebody else likes music or doesn't like music, that's up to them. You know, your own taste is the most important, your own opinion is the most important. I'm not saying that other people should think Ed Sheeran is shit, I'm just saying that actually I do think he's shit. Especially that fucking song Go Away Girl.
So, given all that, what are your criteria or key criterion for judging something to be shit? What's this is a subjective opinion, but how do you reach that opinion?
Well, where I differ from a lot of people is I have to have heard them. I just don't go along with other people who say, like, this is shit, and I'm like, oh yeah, you must be right. I have to have heard them. There has to be some kind of personal connection that they have personally offended me. My criteria for thinking they're shit, well, that's an interesting question actually. I don't think I've got one. I think, I've always maintained that I'm a very open-minded critic. You know what? If Bono ever made a good song, I'd be the first to praise it.
Fair enough. There are, in the book, it's not all castigation, because you love Camera Obscura.
I do love Camera Obscura, and cats.
And cats.
Yes, I do love cats.
And
pizza.
And there's also... does anyone know those bands? Pizza and Cat?
Pizza, yeah.
There's also some quite poignant moments in it, particularly when you're talking about David Bowie's death. And what I particularly found interesting was when you were reflecting on David Bowie as a figure in your youth, and how all the playground David Bowie fans...
They were bullies.
They were the bullies.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting, because normally you would associate that, certainly stereotypically, with the Bowie people were the cool outsiders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who were trying to fit in, but you were outside the outsiders.
I'm not sure that were the outsiders, not in the 70s. You see, interestingly enough, my colleague David Stubbs wrote something very, very similar about his experience of growing up, that the playground bullies were the Bowie fans, because they were the ones kind of cool enough, or thought they were cool enough to kind of... he was all about the stomp, he was all about the glam in the early 70s. The kind of... those fans were the ones who absolutely turned their back on him when he released Boys Keep Swinging, because they're like, oh my god, he actually enjoys dressing up in drag.
But it does speak to something about in you, which I think is quite key about, you know, you're kind of self-confessed lonely person, and throughout a lot of this book. And I wonder how a lonely person gets onto the NME, gets to hang out with rock stars, gets to be a catalyst for scenes. You know, how do you become a scene star when you're essentially quite an isolated?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? I never viewed myself as a scenester for sure, but I don't think any of them do. I always figured what it was I honestly didn't think anybody gave a shit about my opinion. Nobody. And if you really think that, that's incredibly liberating, because it frees you up to do what the hell you like, because nobody gives a shit, so why not do what you like? And that's certainly how I felt at the NME. It was, I really felt that nobody ever read me at the NME. When I joined Melody Maker, even when I was kind of being flown around the world and kind of held as this or that, well, I was drunk most of those times, and I was hanging out with people that I knew wouldn't have been hanging out with me if it hadn't been for that, the fact I was in this weird position of authority, and so that just kind of helped my self-loathing. I don't really know. I think it was all I've ever wanted to do in my life is fit in. All I've ever wanted to do with my music was form a fucking Ramones tribute band or Buzzcocks or something, but I could never figure out more than about one chord. And on top of that, it always seemed easier to make up your own songs than to do cover versions. And all I ever wanted to do was fit in, but the thing was, I really didn't want to have to do what everybody else seemed to be doing to fit in. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to kind of fit in, but everybody come to me, if that makes sense. I wanted everybody to fit in. No, I don't think I did, actually. I think I would have told them to fuck off if they come to me. I've been in like denial of Everett True. In fact, I have a constant battle with my writing alter ego Everett True pretty much every day, and that's been the case for about 10 or 15 years. I have issues with him. I think he's a bit of an arsehole, to be honest.
I guess we should think about a bit more reading, but can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
Because this, and after you read, then we'll throw the questions to the audience. I wonder what Jerry, the legend of 1982-83, would make of Dr. Jerry Thackeray, PhD, academic.
Corporate sellout.
On that note.
Without a shadow of a doubt, and he wouldn't have understood the academics shit either. Seriously. Alright. I'm going to read you out a couple of pieces of this. If you don't clap loud enough, I'll read you out a third one. This one's called Ed Sheeran is Shit. You might detect a bit of a theme going through this book, because some of the other pieces are called things like Bono is shit, Chris Martin is shit, the Chainsmokers is shit, and so forth. And the theme doesn't just extend to the titles. I thought it'd be hilarious if I just took the same words and just rearranged them a little bit, put a couple of different adjectives in and stuff. And if it worked for Wesley Willis, I don't see why it shouldn't work for me. Ed Sheeran is shit. Do not believe the herd. Do not believe the herd. Never believe the herd. Unless the herd amuses you or serves to provoke enemies or divert attention away from yet another delayed train journey between Redhill and Dorking Deep fucking Dean. My Facebook feed is swamped with folks saying stuff like, I don't want to say Ed Sheeran is shit because it isn't up to me to tell others how to listen. Damn straight. It ain't up to you to tell others what to like. What music do you like? Oh, a bit of everything. Really? You really like a bit of everything? Wow. You're so scared of being misconstrued that you can't even figure out what you like yourself, though. You're so scared of being viewed as old or not down with the teenage kids or a hipster that you can't state your own opinions loud and clear, though. Ed Sheeran is shit. He's a beardy, strawberry blonde comfort zone for people with low life expectations and few expectations beyond those that have been fed on YouTube and Instagram. A gorged, smug, regular money-making machine whose primary concern is not love or flowers. Why am I even discussing corporate business planning with you? Ed Sheeran is shit. You do not need to be beautiful to say this. You do not need to be lonely. You do not need to be popular. You do not need to be a geek. Ed Sheeran is shit. You don't even need to listen to Ed Sheeran or his new album or his legion upon legion of fans to realise this. Just read the apologetic commentary from those too afraid to state the facts, staring them rancid in the face. The apoplectic commentary from those who think they're making a statement by coming out against him. The fawning conversation from those whose idea of a varied and worldly musical taste means including a Radiohead album on their playlist of Coldplay, Damien Rice, Sam Smith, Adele, and Ed Sheeran. Look at the way he looks, not so much a performance as a baby seal entitlement. Ed Sheeran is shit. How many times do we need to say this before you start listening? Hey, why not start listening? Just because you've only heard a handful of songs does not mean that no alternatives exist in the world. Ed Sheeran is shit. Do not fear the crowd. Has it not occurred to you that the crowd can be wrong sometimes? Ed Sheeran is shit. The very idea of listening to his music drives me to extremes of fury that I thought only Donald Trump could create in me these days. Ed Sheeran is shit. Scream it from the rooftops in the balustrades. He has no grace, no style, no panache, no star quality. Ed Sheeran is shit. He makes Mumford & Sons sound like a thriving farmer's market. He makes Coldplay sound like throbbing gristle. He puts One Direction into perspective. He is the grey, he's the grey, he's the grey in the middle of the grey. He is the grey, he's the grey, he's the grey in the middle of the grey. His emotion is not. There is no anger, no joy, no passion. Neutral colour, neutral carpet, neutral wallpaper designed for the sole purpose of being neutral. Ed Sheeran is shit. Cancerous shit that spreads and grows and makes it so the abnormal becomes the normal. Ed Sheeran is shit. He is one more marketing device to sell clothes and beer in department stores and provide an outlet for nothing. Shit. Less than nothing. Shit. Lifestyle recruitment. Shit. An approximation of music that does not even attempt to capture the spark that can make music so special, so magical, so special. The boy next door who should have stayed inside. Cultural appropriation so half-assed you don't even realise what's going on. But it is. But it is. I eat at McDonald's very occasionally. I drink coffee at Starbucks. Never. I buy my groceries at Asda. Ed Sheeran is shit. And that shit is everywhere. And the other one I'm going to read, I put an index in this book so I can find it. It's called Chris Martin is shit. You might notice a similarity or two. I don't know. We can't find. Oh no, it's not Chris Martin is shit. That one's shit. I'm going to read you Billy Corgan is shit because that amuses me more. Billy Corgan is shit. Slap-headed, self-preening, Trump-loving, grave-robbing, narcissistic, tuneless, bombastic, flatulent cunt. Do not believe the woefully impressed. For years I have had to put up with people going, yes, but his early work was quite good, you know. No, it wasn't. Just because you have the ears of a doormat and the taste of a McDonald's Australian burger, just because you prefer your music with no wit or imagination, a spittoon of cultural appropriation, a whole heap of dog-turd guitar fret wank, it does not make his early work quite good, you know. A rip-off of a rip-off of a rip-off does not magically transmute into art. It remains a rip-off of a rip-off of a rip-off. You reckon it ain't up to anyone to tell anyone else what to like? Bullshit it ain't. You so scared of being misconstrued that you can't even figure out what you like yourself though? Billy Corgan is shit. He was never in the Stone Temple Plagiarists League, let alone the rest of his generation. Complacent, constipated, coldly calculated shit. Shout it loud, shout it clear, so there's no fucking way it can be misconstrued. Billy Corgan is shit. Shit, shit, shittity shit. Formless, wailing, whiny, sludgy, a post-grunge, tuneless miasma, pomposity and shit that stinks even more for its source. Billy Corgan is shit and there's only so far you can parade your own personal shit. Dick rock from a dick. Supercilious, pompous and priggish. Self-regarding portentousness and naff schoolyard symbolism. You don't need to listen to Billy Corgan's music to realise this. Just read the apologetic commentary from those too kind or indifferent to state the fact. The apoplectic commentary from those who think they're making a statement by coming out against him. Look at the way he looks. Billy Corgan is shit. How many times do I need to say this before you start listening? Hey, why not start listening? Just because you've only heard a handful of songs does not mean that no alternatives exist in the world. Billy Corgan is shit. Do not fear the crowd. Has it not occurred to you the crowd can be wrong? Haven't you heard of the law of the lowest common denominator? Billy Corgan is shit. Billy Corgan is shit. He makes Adele sound like Nina Simone. He makes Coldplay sound like the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band. He's the grey. He's the grey. He's the grey in the middle of the grey. His emotion is not. Billy Corgan is shit. Cancerous shit that has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. Pompous shit. Bill I Am is not hilarious. He's a sick, squalid little joke. One more marketing device to help sell clothes and beer and sanding tools and provide an outlet for nothing. Shit. Less than nothing. Shit. Thank you.
So, shall we take some questions?
No, our questions.
If there are any questions, do we take them? Anybody have a question for Jerry? Yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Are you going to write something about artists you like someday?
I think that's a fair question. And in fact, the title of that book is very misleading because the majority of this book is actually about artists I like. It just so happens the pieces that I've written about how the people I don't like have a bit more of a rhythm to them and a cadence and make for better kind of, public performance pieces. I can read you out a piece about a band I like if you like. That's not a problem. I could actually, you know what, why don't I read you out a piece by a band I like? Is that cool?
Yeah, sure.
Alright, should we do that? Alright. You'll have to give me a second. I think it's in this one. Yes, it is. Alright, good. So one of the things that intrigues me about music journalism, always intrigued me, is whether it's possible to read music journalism, not hear the music and still appreciate it just as much without hearing the music. You know, it describes something and it sets off a series of connections in your brain and kind of images, emotions that are the equal to or perhaps even superior to the ones that you would have got listening to the music. So I decided to start with the most difficult thing I could possibly write about, which is the greatest performance I have ever witnessed. It happens to be on YouTube. Go on, cry, cry, your tears won't change a thing. I know surprisingly little about Nina and her life when it comes down to it. All that I need to know is contained within this one performance, recorded on 7th of April 1968, 3 days after the death of Martin Luther King Jr. and performed at the Westbury Music Fair. You don't even need to listen to the music, although why you would choose not to listen to the music of Miss Nina Simone, I have no idea. Just watch her face and the faces of her audience on the YouTube clip. Just watch her face, pain etched into every line, but not a victim, never a victim. Her stance as she hammers the keys, so proud, so caring. Just look at those eyes, the way she loses herself in the music. Just watch her considering how to start the song, the enormity of which she's unable to tackle, but someone needs to, someone must. Turn on the sound. How can you bear to be doing anything when Nina Simone sings? How can you bear to do anything? Listen to that sweet gospel organ sound, attempting to find a hurt that still feels raw and open nearly 40 years on. And that often feels that it has nothing to do with Martin Luther King Jr. at all. The names change, but the hurt remains. Look at her face. Look at her. Look. Listen to her voice. Listen to the instrumentation. Listen to it all. Jazz is a white term to define black people. My music is black classical music. I don't listen to this song to linger in shared pain and betrayal though. I listen to the song at the moments when the world feels too much to bear, when there's a surfeit of that bullying misogynistic asshole Donald Trump on the web, when more innocent people have been murdered by Western approved forces in Syria, when my 7-year-old is having difficulty adjusting to rules. I listen to the song for its succour, the balm. I reach deep inside the performance for its frailties and hurt and beauty. I reach deep inside this performance, and in the act of listening to the performance, never fail to be healed in some way. The way it starts so gently and eloquently and sorrowfully, never in anger or retribution. The way it swells, the way Nina reaches for notes and expression that I've never heard from anyone else. That soothing organ, the audience still shocked beyond tears. The way she grabs notes and feelings and emotion out of nowhere. The way the music almost overwhelms her voice. The way she stops the song rolling to dissolution. As she sings, what do they think they have to gain? And did Martin Luther King, did he die in vain? Such a eulogy, it heals me every time. I could play this song 5 times over in its 20-minute entirety and still never tire of it. Still find something new to lose myself within each time. It makes me want to punch the air. Every refrain makes me want to punch the air, and in the act of punching the air, stagger and weep and hug myself with happiness that someone out there knows how it feels to feel. I don't do religion because I don't need to do religion. That's about it. But to be honest, most of the bands that I feature in this book are really obscure. That a lot of them are Australian because that's where I live.
Anyone have any other questions?
Do you still think music journalists have any influence?
Do I think music journalists have any influence? I don't know if I'll go a little bit tangential on that. I teach music journalism at BIM London. I'm course leader of the course there, and quite often when I meet people that I ain't seen for a while, they say, "Oh, you teach music journalism," and then they laugh because they're like, "Oh, you'll never get a career out of that." Well, my answer to that is all my colleagues at universities, at colleges, they teach similar courses that people will never get a career in. The music industry. 95% of the people in the music industry do not make a living from it. I invented that figure, but it's something high anyway. So do music journalists have influence? Yes, they do. There was an amazing piece that I will cite for you, written by Alexis Petridis in The Guardian, the day after the One Love concert, actually I think it was the day after the Manchester Arena bombings, which is one of the most incredible pieces of journalism I've ever read. And if you're telling me that piece didn't influence people and didn't affect them, then I'm sorry, but I don't believe you. So yes, I think they do.
Any other questions?
Why do you hate Father John Misty so much?
Father John Misty. Actually, I've got some poetry about Father John Misty. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, go on.
Well, Father John Misty, in fairness to myself, I think Father John Misty started it. I think he might have had a pop at me in print somewhere before I even knew who he was. And then I thought, well, it's only fair, you know. It's kind of like Little Mix and Piers Morgan, right? He's the Piers Morgan and I'm the Little Mix. I just thought it was fair, you know. And I don't know, if I'm honest with you, I'm not sure I've ever heard Father John Misty. I know he features in this book a fair amount, but I just thought his name was funny. This is Father John Misty, the unpublished poems. Father John Misty, you seem quite shifty, humorous in a non-humorous way. Father John Misty, the critics love to discuss you. They want to know the real you. Why? All art is a performance, but not all art is boring or dull or serious or like late 1970s Elton John without the tunes. You have a beard and no backstory, just another hipster gently perspiring in the light of another. Father John Misty, you have been compared to various artists like Fleet Foxes, Jackson Browne and others I have never given the time of day to. Father John Misty, I've not heard your new album. This does not bother me. I have a feeling that you and I could never be friends or enemies or one-night lovers, as we have nothing in common beyond a distrust of razor wit. Father John Misty, critics like to use your real name. Why? All artists' performance, some duller than others, some so dull that it should not be listened to at all. Father John Misty, like an Agatha Christie, without the mystery. Father John Misty, pitchfork informed me that you have one of the 7 albums out today you should listen to now. So demanding acclaim and with the bar set so low. Father John Misty does not rhyme with risky. I don't know, I was just, at the time, everybody was laying into Ed Sheeran, which I thought was unfair. And everybody was praising Father John Misty, and I was like, well, you know, there ain't much difference between the two of them, really. It's just, they're not, I kind of don't like either of them, but Father John Misty annoyed me more because people were claiming him to be good, which is completely down to you guys. You know, whatever. I'm just speaking up for moi.
Any other questions? I can't see.
Yeah.
We saw you 2 weeks ago at the Dan Tracy benefit,
Yeah.
and Jerry the legend was up on stage once again after so many years. How did that feel? I know you were quite nervous about it and wanted to kind of slink away afterwards, but and you wrote quite an affecting sort of tweet afterwards about sort of belonging. I mean, that was a great night. Is that something that you missed, that whole atmosphere?
Yeah, that is something I most definitely miss. Now, what I realised, having been living in Brisbane for 7 years and having tried to remove myself from anybody who might possibly like me for a longer time than that, is what I miss about the music, and I can't, this is another point of disagreement between myself and my 22-year-old legend self. I can't believe I'm saying this, but what I almost miss more about music isn't the music itself, but the sense of community that comes along with attending gigs, being in places like this, hanging out with certain people. I almost miss that more than the music. And that gig that you referred to is a benefit gig for Dan Tracy, the singer with television personalities, is very ill. I had to break one of my last taboos. I got back in contact with a friend I fell out with 32 years ago, and you know, it's okay. And I was surprised that I enjoyed myself. I was looking for a sense of community. The song I actually did on stage that night was a television personality song called A Sense of Belonging, which to me is honestly, all I've ever been looking for in my entire life is a sense of belonging. I know that I've been associated with scenes, I know that people have heard of my name, some people, not many, but some people, but that doesn't connect with me for some reason. I'm still looking for that sense of belonging. It'd be nice to have it. I don't know, Dave Graney, who's quite a great Australian musician, kind of obscure these days, I guess. He wrote a memoir called Rock and Roll Is Where I Hide, which I think's a really great title. Rock and roll is where we hide. It's where we kind of, you know, the awkwardness, the silences, the empty venues, the full venues, whatever. It's where we hide. It's our life. Yes, I really miss that, and for an hour or so at the 100 Club a couple of weeks ago I felt that again.